Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Said bin Thalith. I'm from the Taqa Youth Council. Initially, I would like to thank Mubadala for having us here. And joining me today for this roundtable discussion is Tawaddid to my left, NOC engineer, and power protection engineer Mariam al-Naimi. So, the roundtable discussion that we're having today is towards empowering the youth for an impactful change in energy. And our main discussion today will be focused on the Energy Transition Index. The Energy Transition Index is a comprehensive global index that classifies different metrics across and ranks different countries across the world. So globally, every country is ranked from, let's say, 1 to 130. It's 130 countries overall. And basically, this index is used for policymakers, energy stakeholders to provide a clear picture of where we stand in the fight against climate change. Perfect. As you can see, there's a map behind me right here to my left. It shows different types of progress. Some countries are leading in the charge with significant improvements, and certain other countries are in the more developing stage, so they're reaching the energy transition successfully.
So, as you just mentioned, some countries are doing significant improvements on the ETI, as well as some countries are still slowly getting there. So, in your opinion, what do you think is the main things that we can learn from the very improving countries, and how can the countries that are lagging behind catch up to them?
Okay, so basically, countries that have great progress within the index have often very strong policy frameworks that support development, energy, the movement towards renewables, efficiencies, and innovation. They invest in R&D. R&D provide incentives for clean energy. Like certain countries, you might recycle plastic, you might get some money out of it. We see those incentive schemes across globally, whether it's Germany, UAE, we see it across all the world. And they even map out clear long-term goals to guide their transition. As we see during these challenging times with the climate crisis, every country is pledging specific years, whether it's 2040, 2030, 2050, 2071. There are different years, different countries. So the race is very near and it's very challenging. Other than that, there are other things that involve the youth. Then that's where we stand here as a youth council and sitting across from us. A lot of the new workforces during the transition are leading to green jobs, where they're focused into adaptability, building the agile framework for the youth to kind of learn and adapt into these new roles and new positions.
What factors contribute to a country's progress in the Energy Transition Index?
Okay, so we mapped that, we scrapped it, but it's not a problem. So there are two factors that primarily lead into the Energy Transition Index. You have the system performance and the transition readiness factor. The progress on the ETI, or the Energy Transition Index, is influenced by a variety of factors. If you saw in the slide that I didn't want to show there, it's approximately 30 different factors that fall under both these transition readiness and the system performance, that fall into different various verticals across the energy sector, whether it's research and development, policy frameworks, movement towards renewables. It falls into various different factors, even governance to an extent as well, and how private and public investments are even fall under these verticals, towards clean energy, of course, and towards how the society is even susceptible to the climate transition and the climate crisis. Because there are certain countries where the climate know-how doesn't really exist. People don't understand what the energy transition is. People don't know what are the challenges within the climate change. And now I'll hand over to Mariam, my colleague here, and she'll kind of divulge more into the first half of the Energy Transition Index, which involves the system performance.
So let's talk about the energy triangle. It is mainly the main source of the Energy Transition Index. So it represents three different areas, such as security and access, environmental sustainability, and economic development. And as we navigate through this complex, we need to consider how countries are boostering their energy into transition into a low carbon alternatives and enhancing the long-term efficiency. So I will start by explaining the security and access, where at this stage we are finding and managing short-term solutions that will provide us on a decarbonized energy systems, and it will include also studying the post-pandemic energy consumptions factors impacted on reduction or increase in the energy consumption. Moving on to the environmental sustainability, where we are accelerating the investments into the sustainable sources. And finally, the economic development and growth, where the energy systems are crucial for being affordable and economic growth in a just transition.
Thank you so much, Mariam, for digging deeper into that component. So I would like to ask you, in your opinion, what can the youth contribute towards this energy triangle, especially when it comes to enhancing the resilience of our energy systems?
That's a very good question. So it comes through that the youth involvement within this process and decision-making processes, and their access to education and green job opportunities that will provide them a future for that. Also that supporting youth-led projects that will include improving sustainability and enhancement of it. And from that, we will be supporting the Energy Transition Index.
And for you, Saeed, what do you think about the specific economic development and growth? How can we as youth contribute towards that? How can we advocate for such growth?
That's a very interesting question, but a bit tricky. So, how the youth can be involved into this growth goes to different. We have to step back from a community perspective initially, because you have different communities, people that don't understand first the climate crisis, how the energy transition is. As we grow up, we have to kind of focus on teaching those. So, you want to encourage the youth into joining these sectors. There are specific NGOs, specific programs, as we saw today in multiple panels in different sectors. We have the Climate Tribe, we have different councils. These are just brief examples within the UAE. But then when we step back into the global scheme, you have kind of different organizations similar to IRENA, the SRE, the Indonesian renewable agencies. You have different agencies that kind of support the youth in these youth-led initiatives and kind of connect the youth into investment opportunities from all across the globe. And you have these organizations that support this growth. So that's one way where the youth can tap into that sector.
So now I think we can also move on to the second component. So you can also tell us more about it.
So the second component is the transition readiness, where it's not just a measure, it's a roadmap for the sustainability change. And it is gauged by 6 enablers that determine the nation's pre-readiness to shift to low-carbon energy futures. These enablers are crucial, and today we spotlight the role of youth in the transformation journey. So I would like to discuss more about the indicators. We mainly have 3 indicators: energy system structure, capital and investment regulation and politics commitment, and human capital and consumers participation, and infrastructure and innovative businesses, and institution and governance. So we have such enablers for this thing that we need to introduce the strategic commitments, which means we have to align with the strategic plans, support the regulation required. So companies, and either they are supporting the whole world as well to meet the targets of the energy transition and take the lesson learned from previous countries. And finally, the infrastructure, like building a solid infrastructure for them to be able to either pitch in the sustainable projects or find better solutions to improve this score.
So you just talked about the enablers, especially when it comes to the transition readiness. So how do you think youth engagement and also consumer participation would be an effective way to I guess, like feed into those enablers so we can enhance our transition readiness?
So this is a very important question. We are now focusing at this COP as youth. So what is the participation of youth during this COP? They are handling lots of activities within the COP, and they are being involved in decision making as well. So enabling the youth, including them within the decision makers, and this will help them to lead even future sustainable renewable energy projects, and also it will enable them to educate their peers as well to find better solutions.
Can I interject to that as well?
Sure.
I want to add more to what Mariam said. By building this infrastructure or this framework across just engaging the youth from a younger age, we always go to these opportunities where you want to instill these small seeds where initially you want to teach them maybe how to recycle, how to plant mangroves, to kind of help decarbonize the world or whatever emissions that have been going out. Once you start building those, you have these people that are thriving within this ecosystem that doesn't just involve the energy companies or anyone within the COP. You want to involve more people across all segments of life, whether it's finance world, the banking, I'm going to keep reverting back to education because that's where the initial seed comes in. Industrial sector, we want to tap into all these small sectors where eventually because initially as you go through this energy transition, all these sectors will be affected. Some jobs will exist and some jobs won't exist. So it's from a young age, you want to tap into these small segments from everything because it will affect the farming industry, the irrigation industry, grid industry. You can go to multiple sectors and it will always fall back into it. So you don't want to lose the balance. As you imbalance one side, the other side might go further up and you might damage the other side. So we would like to aim for a just transition. That's something I just want to add up to what Mariam said.
So how do you think we can come up with like more innovative or more like fresh ideas to enhance this funding or like investment? Especially if we also take the perspective from the youth. So we still, like as youth, we're always like coming up with innovative ideas and fresh ideas to find like solutions for existing problems. So how can we like make those like the funding issue or the investment issue like more like find a solution for it basically?
A good solution will be bridging the gap between the education sector and the private sector within the governmental sector. Because that's a gap that's always been showing across all countries across the world. There is always a gap between the private sector just focusing on whatever their KPIs, their whatever strategic drivers they have, and then you have whatever the governmental side, which they have specific directions, specific drivers that they would like to aim at. And the education sector is where the youth play a role in, where they try to kind of jumpstart everything, try to divulge into all these hot topics without understanding the other segments. It's all about balance, similar to, I'm going to keep reverting back to balance, education, and growing that seed. Once you bridge those gaps, whether it's from the education side, governmental side, and the private side, you have a strong power horse where basically you'll have one voice echoing the same thing, championing the climate change, championing the energy transition. And you'll have alignment between all these segments where all these segments are aiming and pointing at one specific point to find solutions. And let's be realistic as well. From the private sector, you have the technical know-how. They might have the expertise. And maybe the youth may have one small knowledge or one small nugget, let's call it, where they can kind of push, but they don't know how to jump forward to that final jump, where the private sector will jump it, and then from the private sector it can bridge to the governmental side. It's a full cycle. It can start from either the education side, the private side, or the governmental side. It just has to be one initial push that leverages the other ones, basically. And following to that as well, I will hand it over to Tawaddud, but where she will kind of point and show on how a strategy across something that the UAE has been working on, the UAE 2050 strategy, and what it aims to do. And I'm just bouncing back on the previous idea I said, by leveraging all those private and education sector, and how will it will lead to a successful energy transition.
So I'll take what you just said as a starting point. So what Saeed and also my colleague Mariam has been mentioning, so we've been talking about the policies, the regulations, and how to build a resilient energy systems within the UAE. And part of it was also involved in coming up with the UAE Energy Strategy 2050. And the strategy is basically split into two phases. We have the first phase, which is going towards goals, setting goals for 2030, the year 2030, as well as outlining the UAE's ambitions when it comes to reaching a net zero 2050. So we are focusing on this strategy. They're focusing mainly on enablers. So we're talking about all those regulations. How can we have more policies, more regulations that will enable us to have an effective energy transition towards our goal, which is net zero by 2050. And some of the specific goals are basically like tripling the renewable energies and also increasing our capacity and the installed clean energies as well. And also enhancing our finances and balancing also financial savings when it comes to energy efficiencies. So all of this will come back to the Energy Transition Index, which is basically the energy triangle as well as the transition readiness. So all of this, when we take into account, we can see that we are actually setting very specific ambitions which are basically a pathway that our country is gonna go through towards 2050 and on the way to 2030.
So, adding to your points, Tawaddud, how can the youth contribute towards the improvement of the UAE Energy Transition Index score?
I strongly believe in such forums like this. So especially for youth to have more effective engagement in such conferences such as the COP28 here, as well as workshops and other meetings, we need to play a very active role when it comes to these conferences. Because I truly believe that when we connect and we collaborate with like-minded individuals, organizations, and professionals, we actually learn from them, as well as we actually can affect some changes. Because if we interact with certain professionals that are leading projects when it comes to energy transition agenda, we can actually reach somewhere. And we don't want to take away from our own skills. So youth are young, but we still have innovative ideas. We have skills. We have very niche skills that we can contribute towards those renewable energy projects. And I also strongly believe that we're such advocates. So we can really affect change when we advocate for something. So for example, when we were talking about investments, so we can be great advocates when it comes to investments. We can contribute to the organizations going there. And we can also be part of it. We can volunteer, we can work towards it. So I believe that we can play a very critical role when it comes to that.
Thank you, Tawaddud, for this final good closure of it. Anyone has any questions?
You talked about the connection between private and governmental and education. Do you believe that it would be beneficial for more investment, both from government and private sector, in innovation education for the youth as they're coming up, working with youth? I hear them think outside of the box all the time and promoting that. So the funding to grow that innovation through education.
I agree. I did mention that earlier. I think we're bridging that gap, having those investments, having those opportunities, similar to I think there was a session earlier today with the Climate Tribe. They do that type of action where they kind of introduce the youth to different greener ways into thinking. Other than that, here in the UAE as well, we have a great support from leadership and leadership from across both private and governmental and from the education side, where at the moment we have a youth hub fully designed for that purpose to introduce the youth, which is open to anyone, which is the first stepping stone to do that within the UAE. Well, inshallah, it can grow to different opportunities across the world as well. And we have different places that are global as well, similar to Irina Youth, where they give opportunities to multiple people from all across the world. I've been a part of that circle
The
here and there.
accelerator program for
Yeah,
them
and
as
there's
well.
the accelerator program from Irina as well. I believe they launched it earlier this May. So there are these programs that are being launched by specific NGOs, specific organizations globally and locally here as well within the UAE. Thank you for your question as well. I believe we have one more question.
Hello, thank you for your inspiring sharing and the speech. I'm teaching in a university, so I'm here to learn. So you talk about education, that is a key factors for young people to know more about sustainability, about climate change, something like that. So I'm wondering if you have something like specific programs or departments about sustainability in this regard, because before I came here, I went to some workshops and I learned from some young people learning from Europe. We all know that European countries tend to be like pioneering roles in terms of climate change and sustainability. I was really amazed to know that in some, for example, in one university in Germany that my friend studied, there are about 10 programs or departments named by sustainability. So I'm wondering, because I'm from Taiwan, sorry, okay, we are now working on this part. For example, in our university, we have different projects about climate change, about carbon tax, something like that. And we are trying to combine all of the things in a collective manner to make it a special major about sustainability. So I'm wondering how this kind of education is really focused on and how you train students in higher education about sustainability so they can be future leaders in this regard. Okay, thank you.
That's a very heavy loaded question, but I can answer it from my perspective as a person that previously was in the university system in schools.
Okay,
yeah.
good. Mm-hmm.
As a student, I was a terrible student. I can say that honestly. You put me in classes, I wouldn't focus on it that much. But how I would see it is kind of instill it through different activities built in the school. You want to instill these small seeds here and there.
Yes.
You teach them, let's go out to maybe the park, plant some seeds here. The youth, as a youth, you want to instill that small seed. And as they grow older and older, they would learn, hey, that seed I planted might save X amount or Y amount. It's those type of small things that matter, or maybe teach them how to recycle from a young age.
Okay.
And then that initial seed will kind of grow and grow and grow into like wanting to dig deeper into that knowledge. That's how I see it from my perspective. Because if you give me specific courses, and I can maybe say this about most people that have been to universities here, we just studied because we were forced to take that course. We didn't want to take it. So you want to make him actually like and enjoy doing that. As a youth, I can say that from my perspective. It has to be something more engaging rather than, hey, for you to pass, I have to get X amount or do 4 sustainability courses. And at some point, it's just a career path. So you want to kind of have it implemented within their lives, intertwined within their day-to-day lives, not just as an afterthought or a work or a career. You want to have it as a, hey, I do this for a living. I like this. I like planting seeds. I like recycling. It's something you want to instill it as a youth.
So also to add to that, sorry, Said. Also adding to that, so we also have, other than that, we also have programs in our universities. So we have our government universities like Zayed universities, UAE universities. We actually have environmental sciences program for undergrad and also graduate level studies. And then other universities, so currently also I am studying in environmental law and sustainability policies, and that's in Sorbonne here. And actually in Abu Dhabi, not here in Dubai. And other than that, like if we're only looking at the university degrees, we also have like programs such as Youth for Sustainability. It's a Masdar initiatives where they choose like specific youth who are very passionate when it comes to sustainability and environment, and they go through like a very intensive 1-year program, and within that program they teach them about all like the specific pillars of sustainability and how can they lead a sustainable life and how can they advocate in their community about that sustainable life. So we have both. We have like such community engagements as well as like very like university degrees as well, like undergrad and also postgrad.
Thank you. I think that was our last question. And for just a closing statement, I'd like to thank everyone for attending this session and for participating in these questions, because I think the questions was probably the most fun part, engaging with other people, understanding different cultures. And the main aim of this session is basically to understand that this session is basically essential to kind of understand how to bridge the gap between the youth and the energy transition, and how to build and aim to create a more sustainable future for all of us. Thank you guys for attending this session. Have a great day.
Thank you so much.